Good morning, boys and girls. Today we are going to begin talking about informative writing. There are a few different types of informative pieces that we see right here. The first type is all about books. So that is maybe a book that is telling you all about a certain type of animal or a plant or about a subject. Then we also have articles. An article is maybe something that you'll see in the newspaper or a magazine or even sometimes online about a specific subject. It's not very long usually, and it just gives you some details or maybe some updates about that subject. Another type of informative writing is a how-to piece. So those are going to be instructions, so maybe something like a recipe or how to make a certain type of product or how to build something. We also see biographies. A biography is a book that is written about a certain person's life. So it could be about a famous person or maybe a person that was really important and did something important in their life. A biography is just about an important person. And the last time is an explanatory piece. So that means it's not necessarily telling you how to do something, but maybe explaining how something works. So maybe if you see an article explaining how they build a certain type of machine in a factory, that's what an explanatory piece would be. Just like in our narrative writing, there are 3 parts to an informative writing piece. The first part is the introduction to the topic. During the introduction to the topic, the author tells the reader what topic or book they will be discussing. The introduction should catch the reader's attention. So just like in our narrative writing, we want to catch the reader's attention. We want to get them hooked in and really be excited about what they're reading. So that's the goal of the author in the beginning of the story. The next part is the body. Just like we had in our narrative writing, we have the intro and then the body. The body is the biggest part. It's right there in the middle, and that supplies us with facts and details about what we're supposed to be reading. So the author supplies facts to give further information about the topic or text. So if we were talking about how a machine is being built, maybe how they build cars in a factory, at this point, the author would tell you what type of materials that they use or how many people it takes to run the machines and different things like that. They're giving us all of those facts during this part. And the last part is the closure. Just like a personal narrative, there's going to be a closure. That's where we wrap everything up. The author wraps up the informative writing piece. Sometimes we'll give a call to action or ask a question. So sometimes you may see that they ask you a question to kind of see if you remember what you learned about. Sometimes they will, encourage you to take on a new hobby or to try something new or some other type of call to action like that. So today I have got a story that I'd like to read. This is an informational book. This book is called Insect Bodies. And I chose a few pages out of this book in order to illustrate the 3 parts of the informational writing: the introduction to the topic, the body, and the closure. So let's look at this first page that I chose here. This is one of the very first pages in the book. I'm going to read it right here. It says, insects belong to a big group of animals called arthropods. The bodies of arthropods are made up of small parts called segments. The segments are joined together. Look at this blue wasp's legs. The leg is made up of 5 segments that are joined together. So if we look at this page here that I just read, it introduces us to our topic. So our topic is going to be insects. We can tell by the title of the story called Insect Bodies. It introduces us to insects. It tells us about them. They're called arthropods. And then it tells us what we're going to be discussing: insects and their bodies and the way that they are segmented. So that's a good introduction. That is telling us what we're getting ready to read, and it introduces you. If you didn't know about insects and their bodies and the way that they're formed, then this helps you further identify that. Now, the next part that I'm going to read is the body. The body gives us facts and details. This is the biggest section. So there are probably about 5 or 10 pages that have the body in this story, but I only chose one, so I don't have to read the whole book. So I just chose one part about the antennae. Okay, this part is about the eyes, and there's other parts about their legs and wings, but I just picked this page to show you how the body will look in the middle. Insects have antennae which help them sense the world around them. They use their antennae as feelers. Different insects have different kinds of antennae. Antennae can be long or short, furry or smooth. Now, if we look back over here at our body, the author supplies facts that give further information about the topic. Now, you will notice he did not start talking about some other type of animal in the middle of the story. He didn't start talking about what the insects eat. He's still talking about their body, but he's giving us more details. He's talking about those antennas that they have. Okay? So that is an example of what the middle or the body of the informative writing piece will look like. And the last page that I chose is actually the last page in this entire book. And that's for a reason, because this is going to be the closure. Insect scavenger hunt. There are probably many types of insects living in your backyard. Insects are everywhere. You can learn more about insects by organizing an insect scavenger hunt with your family and friends. The more people you get involved, the more fun your insect scavenger hunt will be. Now, in our closure, the author wraps up the informative writing piece. So this is after he's told us everything about insects. Look, he has talked about whether a bug is an insect or not. We're talking about growing wings, changes, what they eat, how they use their wings to fly, how many legs they have, their mouths, their eyes, their antennae, all of this stuff. And then at the very end, he's closing it up. So he's telling you, hey, look, you may have some insects in your yard, and I want you to go on a scavenger hunt. Just like we talked about our closure, sometimes they will give a call to action or ask a question. He's calling us to action. He's saying, go and see if you can identify some of those insect bodies that we talked about in the story. I've got a couple of short stories to share with you today that have to do with our informational writing. On our story, we're going to see that the red part is our introduction. The green part is the details to support the facts. The yellow part is supplying facts, and the blue part is the conclusion. So it's going to be the introduction is first, then they're going to give us some facts. And what we want to do as good researchers and good writers, we don't want to just say something. We want to make sure that we can prove it, we can back it up. So if I'm going to tell you that the sky is green, I better be able to prove it. So in order to prove something, we want to say that we're going to add details in order to support those facts, and then at the end we're going to have that conclusion. So let's look at a couple of stories and see which parts are red, yellow, green, and blue to show us the intro, the supplying the facts, details to support them, and the conclusion. Here's my first story. It says, do you ever wonder why frogs are so slimy? So this is the introduction. This encourages somebody to get interested in the topic. So right away, I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. I've never really thought about why frogs are so slimy. That's a good question. So that introduction gets the reader's attention. Frogs are in the amphibian animal kingdom. So that is supplying us some facts. Now, if you don't know what amphibians are and you don't know about the animal families, we may want to learn a little bit more about them. The next part says amphibians have wet, slimy skin. That is a detail that supports the fact above. It tells us they are amphibians, and then it gives us more details. Those amphibians have wet, slimy skin. Frogs live near bodies of fresh water and spend time in the water and outside of the water. Once again, that's giving us more facts, but we want to make sure that it is that we're getting details to support those facts. So let's read the next part. This keeps their slimy skin moist. There's some more details to support the fact. If you are near a pond sometime, look for slimy frogs. That's our conclusion. Remember, a call to action could also be a good way to close up the informative writing, and that's what this author decided to do. If you're next to a pond, maybe you can look for some frogs yourself. Let's look at this next story. It begins by saying pop, pop, pop. That's the sound of a child having fun blowing bubbles in their gum. So that's a good introduction. It's got those words that sound like what they're spelled like. So pop, pop, pop. That gets somebody's attention. And then it goes into talking about the children having fun blowing bubbles with their gum. Let's look at the next part. Gum is a candy that many people can chew. So that's a fact. Yeah, that's true. I've chewed gum before. Let's see if they're going to give us details to support that. It isn't like hard candy to crunch. Instead, you can chew it forever. There's some details to support that fact. Gum has many different flavors. They're supplying us with some more facts there. Some are minty and others are fruity. Those are some details. That's true. I've had some fruity gum before and I've had some minty gum before. People can blow bubbles with their gum. That's supplying us with more facts. This makes gum fun to chew. That's details to support it. It is fun to chew. Next time you're at the store, you should buy yourself a pack of gum. And that's our conclusion. Once again, a call to action. Hey, maybe next time you're at the store, you should buy yourself some gum so that you can experience that yourself. Let's look at these sentence strips that I have and see if we can organize these the right way. Starting with our introduction, then supplying facts, giving details about the facts, and our closure. Let's look at which one of these would be a good way to start off a story. Crabs are animals that have 2 large claws. That sounds like it's giving me some facts, so we'll save that one. Next time you're at the beach, watch out for those crabs and their claws. That sounds like maybe a closure. Maybe somebody's giving you some advice at the end of the story. These claws help protect crabs from predators. Well, that tells me more about the claws. That doesn't really start my story off. Ouch, that crab just pinched me. Oh, I think that's a good introduction. That really gets somebody interested in what we're talking about. So now we have our introduction. Let's look for supplying some facts. These crabs help protect crabs from predators. These claws help protect crabs from predators. I don't think that part needs to come next. That looks like it's giving us more details. I think crabs are animals that have 2 large claws. That will be our supplying fact piece. Like we said earlier, these claws help protect crabs from predators. We'll say that comes next. That is giving us more details about the facts. And finally, some advice at the very end of the story. Next time you're at the beach, watch out for those crabs and their claws. All right, the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and get this paper out of your folders. We see some dotted lines here, and then a solid line down the middle here. So we want to fold on the solid line and then use our scissors to cut on the dotted line. I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. So I've got my scissors here. I'll go ahead and fold this in half. Some of you may call this the hot dog fold, so we'll fold it in half that way. On one side, you'll see informative writing pieces. On the other side, you'll see all of those different types of informative writing. So we'll just take our scissors here, snip, snip, and snip, snip here, and there. Now, I have a piece of paper. On one side, it says informative writing pieces. On the other side, these are the different types. So I can open this up, write something down, open this up, write something down. I've got those little windows there. So let's think about what type of stories we may have for each of these sections. So the first section is a how-to piece. Let's think about what type of story we might have on a how-to. So maybe some instructions on how to do something. For my how-to piece, I think I'm going to choose how to start a fire. Not everybody knows how to do that, and so that would be a good article or a good story for somebody to read in case they were maybe going camping or going outside for a long time. How to start a fire. Now, I want you to choose a different one, how to do something. This doesn't necessarily have to be something that you know how to do, but maybe something you think would be interesting to learn how to do. The next type of informational writing is an article. For my article, I decided that something interesting to read about would be an article about animals that live where it's cold. So maybe that would include penguins or polar bears or some type of fish or whale that lives where it's really cold. That would make an interesting article. Now notice, so far, none of these have got characters or a specific setting. They don't really have any details there that are going to make it more like a story. They're just giving us information. So I want you to choose a different one. Make sure you're not doing one about animals that live where it's cold. Choose a different topic for your article. For my all about book, I think it would be interesting to learn all about bananas. Where do they grow? How do they grow? How long does it take them to grow? Are there different types of bananas? All of those things could be included in an all about story about bananas. And finally, a biography. Remember, that is a story about somebody that is important or famous. And so for a biography, I think it would be interesting to read a biography about MLK, which is Martin Luther King. That would be an interesting biography. So what I want you to do, I'm going to close these back up so you can see these again. You're going to do just like I did. You're going to write a how-to piece, a story that you think might be interesting about how to do something. A story you think that might be interesting as an article, so maybe a little bit of a shorter topic, something that that you would like to learn about. So like I would like to learn about the animals that live in cold weather. And then an all about book, something that you think would be interesting to learn all about how something grows or all about a life cycle or something like that. And finally, the biography here, that is going to be about somebody famous or maybe somebody popular or something like that, somebody that was important for some reason. A biography is going to describe their life. Okay, so that's what you're going to be doing for this assignment today. When you are done, make sure you turn your work in on Dojo, and we will see you next time for the writing assignment.